So let's start with what inspired me to do this. When I was in the 6th grade, I was introduced to a man named Larry Mahan, who built the coolest boat that this world has ever seen. Larry's dream was to build the biggest boat on Cape Cod, and he began building in his backyard in 1970. Over the next 26 years, the ship was built by Larry and over 1,000 volunteers. The ship is 86 feet long with a specialized reinforced concrete hull. 2,800 square feet of red sail utilized in a Chinese junk rig. The figurehead is carved from a 100-year-old cypress tree and was one of many hand-carved figures on the boat. I was invited to sail on Lorinda and sleep on board, and that's when I swallowed the hook. Ever since then, I knew what I wanted to do with my life and hoped that maybe I can inspire someone in the same way. So in 2009, I started building my own boat. I destroyed my mother's garden so that I could put in the fittings for my new boat barn. I erected basically a tent, made it out of plywood struts, and it was about 35 feet long. We covered it with a tarp at first, but that failed, and I eventually graduated to greenhouse plastic. There was a lot of math involved at first. This is the lofting process. Came out pretty good, though, for a beginner. This is my box of plywood that arrived, 80 sheets to build both my hulls. This is Ryan and Shane, my two best friends. They've helped me a lot with this whole build process. This is me and Ryan putting the sheets scarfed together onto the mold to give it a nice curve to the bottom of the hull. And there's me admiring my handiwork with my boat building clothes. Here's our boat's namesake. These guys would come and visit me all the time over the past few years while I've been building the boat. Here you can see the hull stitched together and the keel being poured. And then we start to put bulkheads in, building from the outside in. You can see how I would make templates to fit the bulkheads in place. And eventually started looking pretty good. So when the first hull was done, I called all my friends and their parents and neighbors and anyone that was available to come and help me pick up and move the finished hull out so that I could start working on the second hull. Once that hull was done, it was put up in the side yard and then worked on the other hull. A year passed, and then it was time to bring both the hulls down to the waterfront area where I would put them together. We built another barn there, and both hulls were stood up, lined up with each other so that they could be joined together. Here you can see the first bulkhead that joins both hulls together, and then I would make the bulkheads at home, trailer them down to the boat, and just keep putting them in until it starting to look like a boat. Here you can see the front fairing where I'm going to have all the storage and chain lockers and water tanks. Did some interior work, started putting the floor in, and before we know it, I finally was starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel. Alright, let's check out the boat.
Ahoy! Come on aboard the Dragonfly!
So this is our deck. Everything's still really rough right now, but we just got the deck on. We're really excited about it, and we're going to keep plugging away until school starts.
This is our 4th summer working on the boat, and we've come a long way in putting in the interior and putting on the top deck this summer. This will be a little table and chair section covered by a hard-top Dodger, and the rest of the cockpit will be open with a couple of seats and steering with a tiller system. If you want to come down into the port hull, you can see we have a lot of our galleons where I'll be spending most of my time. I have a 2-burner stovetop here, a freezer compartment here, icebox, lots of dry storage everywhere else, countertop, and my lovely double basin sink.
Hopefully it's not too dark in here.
Moving on up in the hull, we have a lovely bench seat here with lots of storage underneath. Which will also double as a step up into the bed here. And if you can see way back in here, there's some cubby compartments for clothing. And the front of the boat leaves some space for a single V berth. And we customize this to give ourselves some extra storage. So this will be able to flip up and walk in, and you'll have access to all of the shelving in there. Okay, follow me over to the starboard hull. The back of this hull will be mostly for workspace, navigations, charts, and workbench tool, anything that we might be fixing while we're out at sea. Also a lot of storage in the aft here for folding bikes, fenders, and things like that. We have a pretty spacious wet locker here. And if you're wondering what these are, they're daggerboard trunks, which are a stabilizing feature that the catamarans have instead of the keel on a monohull. This will be our bed and my closet. And in the front of this hull we have our bathroom. So a little sink space, followed by some shower space, and ending with our toilet, or head.
Alright, so back up on deck. I'll give you guys a little more detail up here. Gonna have two 18-gallon gas tanks. Each one's gonna go in a corner. There'll be a lazarette right above it, which will provide more seating space. These companionway hatches, I'm actually gonna use the cutout from the deck to make the top of the hatch, and that will slide back and forward. We'll have drop boards in the front to protect us from any water that would spill over. Our mast is going to go right there. All these sections up front are going to be just like storage for dive gear and fenders and lines. This is the chain locker. Here's our two water tanks that we had custom built for the shape of the boat, 32 gallons each. Here you can see the front of our deck being clamped on right now. In front of that hull's got our holding tank. In the front, very far forward, will be all just flotation. Over on this side, it's just our V berth, as Emily showed you earlier. Give you guys a view down inside the daggerboard trunks. So you can see that goes all the way through the boat. Our daggerboards will be able to retract up and down. 6 feet depth when they're down, and the boat can go in 1.5 feet deep of water when they're pulled up. So I'm going to show you guys just a quick walk around the outside of the boat. So that's probably better. So Kurt has designed this really cool kick-up rudder system, just like a small Hobie cat, where this whole thing will be filled with a cassette and the rudder will go through it, and the whole thing can retract up out of the water. So you can clear it from any lines, or if you have to go in somewhere real shallow for whatever reason. So here's the side of the boat. You guys can see down here the daggerboard trunk holes. There they are. Here's our epoxy mixing station. And the front of the boat.
For those of you not familiar with the catamaran, there'll be a big net hanging in between the two hulls called a trampoline. And the front surface of this will kind of serve as a backrest when lounging on the trampoline.
So you can see under our bridge deck. And then, once we got enough money and the boat is done being built, this barn will come down. And we are just feet from the water.